Ever wonder how Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, impacts global issues? Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, is more than just the spiritual leader of over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. He's an influential figure who plays a significant role in global affairs. His influence spans across continents, cultures, and even religions, making him a beacon of hope for many. As the leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis has a unique platform from which to address issues that transcend borders. He's used this platform to call for peace, champion human rights, and advocate for the environment. His messages resonate with people of all faiths and backgrounds, underlining his global impact. Let's delve into some of these areas. Pope Francis is a staunch advocate for peace. He's often seen calling for an end to conflicts and violence, whether they are in the Middle East, Africa, or elsewhere. His appeals for peace are heard far and wide, influencing diplomatic discussions and inspiring grassroots peace initiatives. Human rights is another area where Pope Francis has made his mark. He frequently speaks out against injustices, oppression, and inequality. His words carry weight, prompting global conversations about the need for a more equitable world. He's especially passionate about the rights of the poor and marginalized, using his influence to highlight their struggles. Then there's the environment. Pope Francis has been a vocal advocate for environmental conservation, famously penning an encyclical or papal letter on the topic. In it, he calls for a global response to environmental degradation and climate change, emphasizing the moral duty of every individual to care for our shared home, the Earth. Pope Francis, through his words and actions, has become a significant figure in addressing pressing global issues. The world listens when he speaks, and his influence extends far beyond the boundaries of the Catholic Church. As we continue to face global challenges, the role of influential figures like Pope Francis becomes ever more crucial. Pope Francis, through his words and actions, has become a significant figure in addressing pressing global issues. To understand his influence, we first need to delve into his past. Thus, let us journey back to the early years of Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina. His story begins on December 17, 1936, in the bustling city of Buenos Aires, the son of hard-working Italian immigrants. Young Jorge's parents instilled in him the values of humility, compassion, and faith, which later became the cornerstone of his papacy. In his early 20s, an encounter with a priest who showed him tremendous kindness during a time of personal struggle profoundly moved Jorge. This experience stirred a calling within him, leading him to enter the Society of Jesus as a novice in March of 1958. The journey to priesthood was not easy for Jorge. He underwent rigorous spiritual training, academic studies, and pastoral work. His dedication and commitment were evident as he progressed through the Jesuit ranks. In 1969, a decade later, he was ordained a priest, dedicating his life to service and the teachings of Jesus Christ. As a priest and later as the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Jorge, now known as Father Bergoglio, became renowned for his dedication to the poor and marginalized. He often visited the slums of Buenos Aires, ministering to the sick and the needy. His simplicity and humility were remarkable. He chose to live in a simple apartment rather than the Archbishop's palace, and he was known to use public transportation instead of a chauffeured car. His commitment to social justice was evident in his words and actions. He advocated for the rights of the poor, spoke against economic inequality, and called for compassionate treatment of immigrants. This dedication to the marginalized was not without controversy. His tenure as Archbishop during Argentina's Dirty War saw him being criticized for not doing enough to challenge the military junta. However, his defenders argue that he worked behind the scenes to protect many individuals at great personal risk. These formative experiences shaped Pope Francis's approach to leadership and social issues. His early years, his journey to priesthood, and his time as Archbishop of Buenos Aires all contributed to the compassionate, humble, and socially conscious Pope we know today. Upon his election as Pope in 2013, Francis hit the ground running, breaking barriers and setting precedents. From the get-go, Pope Francis was a man of firsts. He's the first Jesuit Pope, a significant move as Jesuits are known for their dedication to thought, education, and missionary work. This appointment brought a new perspective to the Vatican, infusing the papacy with a spirit of intellectualism and an outward-looking approach. But the firsts didn't stop there. Hailing from Argentina, Pope Francis is the first pope from the Americas. This geographical shift indicated a broader, more global view of the Catholic Church, recognizing the importance of the Americas in the modern world. And if we're talking about geographical firsts, let's not forget one of the most significant. Pope Francis is the first non-European pope in more than a millennium. Yes, you heard it right, over 1,000 years. This appointment was a clear departure from tradition, signaling an openness to change and a greater inclusivity within the Church. During his early papacy, Pope Francis made waves not just within the confines of the Vatican, but across the world. He brought a breath of fresh air to the Catholic Church, demonstrating humility, compassion, and a willingness to engage in dialogue. He washed the feet of prisoners, he embraced the sick, and he reached out to people of all faiths and of no faith. His approachable and humble demeanor, combined with his commitment to social justice, resonated with people worldwide, drawing attention to the Catholic Church in new and unexpected ways. He showed that the Church could adapt, could listen, and could respond to the needs and concerns of the modern world. These first signaled a shift in the Catholic Church, with Pope Francis at the helm, steering towards inclusivity and understanding. Pope Francis has never shied away from addressing social issues head-on. This is a sentiment that rings true when we delve into his perspective on some of the world's most pressing matters. One of the most profound issues Pope Francis has tackled is climate change. He understands the urgency of this global crisis and has made it a cornerstone of his papacy. In his landmark encyclical, Laudato Si', he called for swift action to save the planet, emphasizing the moral duty we all share to care for our common home. He highlighted that climate change is not just an environmental issue, but a social one as well, affecting the poorest and most vulnerable among us the most. But his concern for the vulnerable doesn't stop at climate change. Poverty is another issue close to the Pope's heart. He has often spoken about the throwaway culture of our time, where those who are marginalized are often forgotten. He stresses the need for a new economic order, one that places people, not profit, at its center. And he doesn't just preach about it, he leads by example, showing compassion and solidarity with the poor in his actions. Migration is a third key issue that Pope Francis persistently addresses. He has made numerous appeals for the rights and dignity of migrants and refugees. He's called for a change in our attitude towards migration, reminding us that migrants are not numbers, but people with faces, names, and stories. And in his efforts to promote interfaith dialogue, Pope Francis has extended a hand of friendship to people of all faiths, fostering mutual understanding and respect. He's made historic visits to places like the United Arab Emirates and Iraq, emphasizing the need for fraternity and peace in a world often torn by religious strife. Pope Francis's stance on these issues has not only influenced the Catholic Church, but has also resonated with the wider global community. His vision of a world where the dignity of every person is respected, where the earth is cared for, and where love bridges the gaps of religion, is a vision that continues to inspire and challenge us all. Pope Francis's influence is evident in several key moments of his papacy. His compassionate and inclusive approach to leadership has left an indelible mark on the world, and there are a few key moments that stand out as particularly influential. One such moment was his historic visit to the United States in September 2015. This was a momentous occasion, marking the first time Pope Francis had set foot on American soil. He was welcomed with open arms by thousands of Americans who were eager to hear his message of love and compassion. This visit was not just a diplomatic mission. It was a chance for Pope Francis to connect with the American people, to share his vision for a more compassionate and inclusive world. Another influential moment was his role in the thawing of relations between the United States and Cuba. Pope Francis played a crucial role in this historic shift, offering his good offices to facilitate dialogue between the two nations. His involvement in this process demonstrated his commitment to peace, justice, and dialogue as means to resolve conflicts. And then, there's his response to the global refugee crisis. At a time when many nations were closing their borders, Pope Francis called for compassion and understanding. He urged nations to open their hearts and their homes to those fleeing war and persecution. This stance, while controversial, displayed his deep commitment to human rights and the dignity of all people. These moments highlight Pope Francis's influence on global issues and his commitment to promoting peace, justice, and human rights. From his historic visit to the United States, to his role in the U.S.-Cuba thaw, to his response to the global refugee crisis, Pope Francis has demonstrated time and again his dedication to creating a more compassionate and inclusive world.